Bellator 238 is tomorrow. I forgot about it. So let's do some quickfire last-minute predictions of the entire card. First of all, we're going to go through the prelims. Then we'll get onto the stacked main card. Because I'll be honest with you guys, this card has crept up on me. There are some amazing fights. But we're going to start with the prelims. I'm just going to give a quick look through at some of the fighters that I recognise. Of course, Aaron Pico comes straight to mind. The rise and fall of a fucking pushed prospect that's gone a bit too far. They're still giving him a guy who's 7-3, which means they're probably still not learned from their mistakes. But either way, I think Aaron Pico, I hope he bounces back. I think he's going to bounce back. But this guy's 7-3, bigger than Aaron Pico. We'll see how things go. Like, you never know these things, to be honest with you. This is MMA. This guy's 7-3. Aaron Pico's 4-3. When do we stop listening to the stories and start looking at the reality of his record? 4-3. I think Aaron Pico gets this one done. Very dangerous fight. Very, very dangerous fight. I'm glad that Aaron Pico took some time off to recuperate and replan and go ahead with the future of his career. But to be honest with you, dangerous. Aaron Pico, I hope he gets the job done. And then I'll move on. Another face that I recognise on the prelims, of course. Curtis Millender, who was cut from the UFC at 170 pounds. Amazing fight. Great fighter, 17-5, that's an admirable record. I always thought he was cut from the UFC a little bit too quickly. We'll see if he can make a run at Bellator, and who knows. Maybe he'll get back to the UFC one day. Fingers crossed, Curtis Millender, I think he's going to get the job done over Moses Murrieta. Moving on, there's Cris Cyborg, the guy out of Nate Diaz's camp that lost to the GOAT, Artem Lobov, 7-8. I recognise him. Moving on to the main card though, let's get serious for a second because there are some amazing fights on the main card, starting with, of course, the main event. Julia Budd versus Cris Cyborg. I'll be honest with you guys, I was thinking, oh, who's this Julia Budd girl? Cris Cyborg's gonna... I've heard her name. I've heard Julia Budd mentioned on MMA podcasts and just around the MMA sphere and world in general. You know, dangerous for Cris Cyborg because I'll be honest with you guys, Cris Cyborg has been the queen of a graveyard for a very long time. Her divisions that she's ruled over, women's featherweight, have been absolute fucking cans. I wonder if Julia Budd, who is the same size as Cyborg, and a legit fighter, is going to be able to give her some problems. I'm willing to predict an underdog of Julia Budd. She's such a juicy underdog. I'm willing to predict her to win. Not to mention that Cris Cyborg's coming off a horrific KO loss. A most embarrassing performance of her career, no doubt. I think that Julia Budd is well in control to get an upset win here, to be honest with you, because there's certain girls... Like, I don't even think Cris Cyborg is good, I'll be honest with you. Like, there's certain females that just throw like men. Cyborg just happens to be one of them. The rest of the featherweights in the world at women's divisions just aren't. I think Cyborg is very good. I wouldn't be surprised if Julia Budd gets an upset. I'm going to have fun and place my prediction on Julia Budd getting the upset over Cris Cyborg, making her debut at Bellator. Moving on. Interesting. Featherweight World Grand Prix quarterfinal. Darrion Caldwell versus Adam Borics. Adam Borics 14-0. Darrion Caldwell 14-3. Is it going to be too much for Adam Borics? I respected his win over Aaron Pico, but at the same time, I understood what it was. It was Aaron Pico at the time, you know, and Adam Borics was losing that fight until he landed that flying knee, to be fair to Aaron Pico. I feel like Darrion Caldwell's going to get the job done. Darrion Caldwell's a guy who I have a ton of respect for, that I think could hang in the rankings of the featherweight division in the UFC. I feel like Adam Borics is going to lose his undefeated streak, but we're rooting for Adam Borics because he's undefeated. And we like undefeated people because they make things more interesting in promos for title fights. So we're rooting for Adam Borics. I feel like Darrion Caldwell is going to show him the ropes, take him down, smothering, do what he wants with him. Darrion Caldwell is a fucking beast, picking him to win over Adam Borics. Moving on, Henry Corrales versus Juan Archuleta. Was Corrales the guy that beat Aaron Pico? No, he wasn't. But there was someone very similar to him and looks exactly like him that beat Aaron Pico in one of his fights that was a horrific KO. Juan Archuleta coming off a loss to Patricio Pitbull. I'm going to go with Juan Archuleta. I have a ton of respect for him. 23-2. Beast of a record. Lost to Juan Archuleta. But to be honest with you, it was kind of like a... I didn't even feel like he lost that fight, you know? It was just like he just got outpointed. You know, like it was like Holloway versus Volkanovski. There wasn't a big, brutal loss. It was just like, you he just got outdone a little bit, you know? Like, Juan Archuleta shit the bed a little bit in his title fight last. I think he's going to bounce back with a vengeance, with a big KO win over Henry Corrales, who himself is a very fucking dangerous man. A very dangerous man. I think he was the guy that KO'd Aaron Pico first, as far as I remember. Moving on. Sergio Pettis makes his debut against Alfred Kashakian. Sergio Pettis, everyone must know who he is, coming in at bantamweight division, not the flyweight division. He's very small at bantamweight, which worries me. But he's taken on a man in Alfred Kashakian. If you don't know, this was the guy who sacrificed himself on the Tuesday Night Contender Series for the good of Sean O'Malley. If you remember it, I remember his name very well, because I remember Paul Felder screaming his name as he sank to the canvas, while Sean O'Malley completely humiliated him in front of the world. Rough time for Kashakian. I feel like he may be able to get a good win over Sergio Pettis, but I'm going to go with Sergio Pettis here. I'm betting on him being successful in his debut. He is a bit small for bantamweight, but I think he's still going to be able to get it done. Alfred Kashakian, I mean, once I've seen a guy humiliated like that on the big stage, even though it's Contender Series, it goes out to a lot of people. I think a few million have seen that fight. I kind of lose a bit of hope. So I'm going to go with Sergio Pettis being successful in his debut. But Anthony Pettis just lost. So did Macy Barber. So did someone else. And so did someone else on that very same card of UFC 246. It's not been a good time for Team Rufus recently, I'll be honest with you guys. They're all losing. I'll bet on Sergio Pettis to break that curse. We'll see how things go. Raymond Daniels. Jesus Christ, this card is stacked. Fucking hell. Raymond Daniels versus Jason King. Dangerous for Raymond Daniels. I mean, Jason King's 9-5, an experienced guy, but I still think that Raymond Daniels is going to get the job done. Came into the MMA world a little bit inexperienced, paid for it, but recently comes in with that massive fucking spinning, unnecessary 720 KO that he went out there with, but I guess that's pretty cool. I think he's going to do the same thing to Jason King. I'll be honest with you. Jason King looks like my history teacher. I'm going with Raymond Daniels. I'm not taking these ones too serious, boys. I'll be honest with you. It's Bellator, you know, and then we've got Ava Knight versus Emily King. Somehow stole a position on the main card, so who the fuck knows. Ava Knight is attractive, which means that the brand is going to want to keep her undefeated and winning for the good of the Bellator organization. So I think they know exactly what they're doing. She's attractive, so they make her win. That's how female fighting works. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Julia Budd gets an upset. I'm sticking my neck out on the line because it's last minute and I don't care. And if I'm right, I'll look really cool. Goodbye.